All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are going deep, deep into some seriously mind-bending territory. We're
Oh.
talking parallel universes
Mm.
and the entities that might be hanging out there.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to have your reality shaken up a little bit,
Right.
you are in the right place.
Absolutely.
We're going to be diving into some fascinating research on DMT,
Yes.
this powerful psychedelic
Yeah, it's powerful.
that you find in some plants. And
Mhm.
get this, it might even be inside us right now.
Whoa.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
So let's get into it.
Let's unpack this.
Okay, so this research started out, pretty standard stuff.
It did.
A doctor at the University of New Mexico, Rick Strassman, was studying the effects of DMT on the brain,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how it works,
Yeah, classic neuroscience.
Yeah, but here's where things take a turn for the extraordinary, I guess you could say.
Yeah, extraordinary is a good word.
The volunteers in his studies
Mm-hmm.
started reporting these experiences that were way more than your typical psychedelic trip.
Oh, yeah. Way beyond.
I mean, we're talking near-death experiences,
Mhm.
mystical states,
Right.
and get this, contact with entities in what seemed like
Yeah.
totally different realities.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Right. So I got to ask,
Yeah.
when we say entities,
Mm-hmm.
what are we talking about here? Like,
Yeah.
what were these people actually seeing?
Well, there were a lot of different descriptions, but one that really stands out, one volunteer described being in this like super advanced, hyper technological space.
Oh, wow.
And get this, being worked on by these like insect-like beings.
Hold on. Insect-like beings.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, it's like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. And the thing is, this wasn't just like a one-time thing.
Right.
Multiple volunteers reported these encounters with entities,
Wow.
each one weirder than the last.
So, okay,
Yeah.
we've got people tripping on DMT,
Mm-hmm.
and they're seeing these, like, otherworldly beings.
Right.
But how clearly did they remember these experiences afterward?
That's a great question.
I mean, it was a drug trip, right?
Yeah.
Things can get a little fuzzy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the whole concept of state-specific memory comes in.
Okay, what's that?
Well, think about it like this.
Okay.
You know how you can have a dream that feels so real?
Yeah.
Like you remember every detail.
Uh-huh.
And then you wake up and it just like fades away.
Yeah, it's like trying to grasp smoke.
Exactly. It's like DMT is triggering a different state of consciousness
Okay.
where memories are encoded differently. So when you come back to your normal state,
Yeah,
it's hard to access those memories in the same way.
I see. So it's like the memories are locked away in that specific state of mind.
Right, and that's what makes these DMT experiences so tricky to study.
Yeah, I bet.
Because people might have these profound encounters, but then struggle to recall them fully afterward. So it becomes this puzzle of trying to piece together these fragmented memories.
So are we saying that these entities are, like, real?
Hmm.
Or are they just some crazy hallucination?
You know, that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
The research doesn't give us a definitive yes or no,
Yeah.
but it definitely opens up some pretty mind-blowing possibilities.
Okay, like what?
Well, one theory is that DMT is acting as a sort of channel.
A channel.
Yeah, to parallel universes,
Whoa.
other realities that exist alongside ours,
Okay.
but are usually hidden from our perception.
Parallel universes.
Yeah.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
That's where it gets really wild.
Okay, but hold on a second.
Mhm.
How could DMT possibly do that?
Well, you know, it's not as far-fetched as it might sound.
Yeah.
Physicists have actually been talking about the possibility of parallel universes for decades now.
Huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's based on the laws of quantum mechanics.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the whole mystery of dark matter. This invisible stuff that makes up a huge chunk of the universe.
Right, right.
So what if DMT somehow allows our consciousness to interact with these other realms
Okay.
that are normally invisible to us?
Okay, my head is officially spinning.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
But let's just say for a minute that these parallel universes do exist.
Okay.
And these entities are real beings.
Mm-hmm.
Are they like residents of these other realities?
All right.
Or is there another explanation?
That's the next layer of the mystery, isn't
This
it?
is where it gets really interesting.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about whether these entities are real.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding what they are
Right.
and where they come from.
Exactly.
And maybe even
Maybe
what they're trying to tell us.
Whoa. Right.
Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
I know.
We'll have to take that for another deep dive.
Yeah, for sure. But this is just like the tip of the iceberg.
It is.
I mean, the idea that DMT could be a window into other dimensions.
That we could be interacting with beings from these other realities.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think the first step is to acknowledge that we're dealing with something that's way beyond our current understanding.
Yeah.
Our scientific models, our ways of thinking about consciousness.
Right.
They just might not be equipped to handle this yet.
Okay, so what do we do?
I think we keep exploring.
Yeah.
We keep asking questions.
Yeah.
And we try to keep an open mind.
Open mind. That's key, isn't it?
It is, because with DMT, we're venturing into uncharted territory.
We are.
And who knows what we might find there.
I guess we'll have to keep diving deeper to find out.
Exactly. Let's dive deeper.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Let's go. It really does. You know, it really makes you wonder, like, if this one molecule can unlock these, like, crazy experiences.
Yeah.
What else are we missing?
Right. It's like we're looking at the universe through a tiny keyhole, and DMT is like cracking the door open.
It is. It's like a glimpse.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, glimpse into something much bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of other keyholes to the universe, you know, earlier we mentioned Salvia Divinorum.
Right, Salvia.
This other plant that also seems to produce these otherworldly experiences.
Totally.
Should we like take a little detour from DMT?
Let's do it.
And dive into the world of Salvia.
Okay.
I'm like dying to know how these two substances compare.
Well, it's interesting because Salvia has been used for centuries by Mazatec shamans in Mexico.
Oh, wow.
For spiritual healing and divination.
Interesting.
So it has a long history of, you know, being used in these ritual contexts.
So it's not just some like new recreational drug.
No, not at all.
It's got this whole cultural, spiritual background.
Yeah, deep roots.
Okay, but how does it actually work?
Well, Salvia contains this compound called salvinorin A.
Okay.
And it's like totally different from DMT in its chemical structure, but it produces some strikingly similar alterations in consciousness.
So different chemical, same trippy ride.
In a way, yeah.
Okay, but how exactly are they different?
Well, from the research and, you know, anecdotal reports we have, Salvia trips seem to be even more bizarre.
More bizarre.
And disorienting than DMT.
Than DMT.
Yeah.
Hold on, even weirder than DMT.
It's like turning the dial up to 11 on the weirdness scale.
Okay, I'm struggling to even imagine what that would be like. What are people actually experiencing on Salvia?
Well, imagine like a complete loss of your sense of self.
Oh.
And reality.
Okay.
People often describe merging with objects, like feeling like they've become inanimate things, or even experiencing like multiple realities.
Multiple realities.
Jacked on top of each other.
Okay, my brain is officially broken.
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
So what's happening in the brain when someone takes Salvia? Is it like working on those same receptors as DMT?
That's the interesting part. It's not unlike DMT, which primarily interacts with serotonin receptors.
Right.
Salvinorin A goes for a specific type of opioid receptor in the brain.
Opioid receptor?
Yeah, called the kappa opioid receptor.
Kappa opioid receptor.
You know, the same receptor that drugs like heroin and morphine act on.
So it's an opioid.
Technically, yes.
But Salvia doesn't exactly give you that typical opioid high, does it?
No, definitely not.
It's not about euphoria or pain relief.
No, it's a completely different experience.
Okay, so what's going on with this kappa opioid receptor then?
Well, it seems to be involved in a bunch of complex processes in the brain.
Like what?
Like perception, pain, even our sense of self.
Our sense of self.
Yeah.
Okay, so salvinorin A is messing with all of that.
It seems to be disrupting all of those things.
And that's what leads to these like crazy experiences.
Exactly. The warping of reality, the loss of self, the merging with objects.
Wow. So instead of a feel-good opioid, it's more like a feel completely unmoored from reality opioid.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so we've got DMT, which primarily affects serotonin receptors, and Salvia, which hits those kappa opioid receptors, both leading to these intense otherworldly experiences.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But there's something else that's kind of blowing my mind right now.
What's that?
Salvia is considered relatively non-toxic.
It is, surprisingly.
Seriously?
Yeah, there haven't been any documented cases of fatal overdoses.
That's wild.
I know, right? Especially considering how powerful the effects can be.
Right. But I guess that doesn't mean it's risk-free, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, what are the risks?
Well, the experience itself can be so disorienting.
Yeah.
And for some people, downright terrifying.
Right.
That it can lead to accidents or injuries if someone's not in a safe and controlled setting.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
You definitely don't want to be wandering around a crowded street while tripping on salvia.
No kidding. So we've talked about these strange salvia trips, the loss of self, the merging with objects, the multiple realities.
Right.
But are there any common themes or patterns that emerge from these experiences?
Well, there's one researcher, Daniel Siebert, who's done a lot of work with salvia. And he frequently reported feeling like he was being pulled or taken somewhere.
Pulled or taken somewhere?
Yeah, by some unknown force.
Yeah. Whoa.
He often felt transported to different realms or dimensions.
Different realms or dimensions. Okay, that's starting to sound familiar.
Right.
It's like we're seeing a similar thread running through both DMT and salvia. This contact with these beings or intelligences that seem to exist outside of our normal reality.
It's a compelling parallel, isn't it?
It is. It's like
there's something more going on here.
Yeah, it makes you question whether these experiences are just like incredibly elaborate hallucinations.
Right.
Or if we're truly tapping into something much deeper.
Something beyond our current understanding.
Yeah, maybe our brains are just not equipped to fully grasp it.
Maybe.
But that's what makes this so fascinating, right?
It does.
It's this mystery that keeps us coming back for more.
Exactly. And it forces us to confront the unknown.
Right.
To stretch the boundaries of what we think is possible.
I love that. Stretch the boundaries of what we think is possible.
That's what it's all about.
Okay, so we've got these two powerful psychedelics, DMT and salvia, both producing these wild, otherworldly experiences.
Right.
Besides the entity encounters, are there any other connections between the two?
You know, there are some intriguing similarities.
Okay, like what?
Well, both DMT and salvia can create a sense of traveling through tunnels or vortexes.
Vortexes, okay.
A warping of time and space, and even a feeling of merging with objects or other beings.
So different chemicals acting on different receptors in the brain, but leading to some similar subjective experiences.
It seems that way.
That's crazy. It makes you wonder if there's some underlying common mechanism at play here.
There might be.
What?
Well, one theory is that both DMT and salvia disrupt the normal functioning of the default mode network in the brain.
The default mode network?
Yeah, have you heard of that?
I don't think so. What's that all about?
So think of it as your brain's autopilot.
My brain's autopilot.
Yeah, it's a network of brain regions that's active when you're not focused on a specific task.
So like when I'm just chilling?
Yeah, like when you're daydreaming, mind wandering, lost in thought.
Okay, so it's like the background chatter of the mind.
Exactly, the inner monologue that's always running.
Oh yeah, I know that voice all too well.
Right. Well, research has shown that psychedelics, including DMT and salvia, can actually suppress the activity of this default mode network.
They quiet that inner chatter.
They do.
And that's what alters consciousness.
It seems to be a key part of it, yeah.
So by quieting the brain's autopilot, these substances are allowing us to access different states of consciousness.
Right, states where we're no longer bound by our usual sense of self and the limitations of our everyday perception.
That's incredible. It's like these substances are giving us a glimpse into the hidden potential of our own minds.
They are, and it's important to remember that these substances have been used for centuries in spiritual and ritual contexts.
Yeah, we talked about that with salvia.
Exactly, long before modern science started studying them.
So they're not just lab experiments.
Nah, they're not.
They have this rich history.
They do.
Woven into human culture and our search for meaning and connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that science can sometimes miss, right?
It can.
The subjective, experiential nature of these states.
Right. There's an element of mystery that science can't fully explain.
And maybe that's okay.
Maybe it is.
Maybe the mystery is part of what makes these substances so fascinating.
I think so.
Okay. But before we get too carried away by the wonder and mystery of it all, we should probably address the elephant in the room.
Which is?
The potential risks of using these substances.
Yes, absolutely. Especially in uncontrolled settings.
Yeah, we've heard some pretty wild stories
of
people having, like, terrifying trips, feeling completely overwhelmed and out of control.
It's not something to take lightly.
No, it's not.
And those risks are amplified if someone's not in a safe environment or if they have underlying mental health issues.
Okay, so safety first.
Always.
And of course, we have to mention the legal status of these substances,
Very important.
which varies widely depending on where you are in the world.
It does.
In many places, DMT and salvia are considered Schedule A drugs, meaning they're illegal to possess or use.
So know the laws in your area.
Before you even consider experimenting with these substances,
Absolutely.
safety and responsibility have to come first.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the strange world of DMT entities to the mind-bending realities of salvia.
Right.
We've delved into the mysteries of consciousness,
Yes.
explored the potential risks and benefits of these substances. And it's clear that there's still so much we don't know.
There is, but that's part of the excitement.
It is. It's like this ongoing exploration.
Exactly, an adventure into the unknown.
Okay, but there's one more piece of this puzzle
Okay.
that we haven't fully explored yet.
Which is?
Those otherworldly entities.
Oh, yes, the entities.
What are they? Where do they come from?
Right.
And what are they trying to tell us?
The big questions.
I think it's time we dive deeper into the mystery of those encounters.
I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Okay, so we've danced around long enough.
Yeah.
It's time to talk about the entities.
Right. Those beings from other realms.
Yeah, the ones people see on DMT and salvia.
Yeah, it's got to be the most mind-boggling part of this whole thing.
Right. Like, who hasn't wondered if there's life out there?
Beyond our planet, beyond our dimension even.
Yeah, exactly. And these experiences kind of give us a glimpse.
A glimpse into that possibility.
Yeah, it's both exciting and kind of creepy at the same time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But before we go full sci-fi, we should probably acknowledge
What?
that these entity encounters are all over the map.
They are very diverse.
Yeah, people describe all sorts of beings.
It's not just little green men.
Right, so what are we talking about here?
Well, some people describe humanoid figures,
Okay,
but with strange features or abilities.
like superpowers or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
And then others report creatures that are totally otherworldly,
Okay, like what?
like insects, reptiles,
Whoa.
even beings of pure light or energy.
So it's like a cosmic zoo out there.
You could say that.
But what are these entities doing?
That's a great question.
Are they just, like, watching us?
Some people feel like they're being studied.
Studied.
Yeah, examined.
Okay, now that's creepy.
But others report having conversations with them.
Conversations? Seriously?
Yeah, or even receiving messages.
Messages? Like what?
It varies a lot.
Okay.
Profound insights about reality,
Whoa.
personal guidance, even glimpses into past lives or future destinies.
Okay, now that's just getting spooky.
It can be pretty intense.
So how do we make sense of all this?
Right. Are these entities actually real?
Or are they just, like, projections of our minds going haywire?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And there's no easy answer.
Okay, but let's at least try to wrap it down.
Okay, so one interpretation
Mm-hmm.
is that these entities are independent beings
Okay.
existing in other dimensions.
Like parallel universes.
Yeah, exactly.
But if that's the case, how are we interacting with them?
Well, the theory is that DMT and salvia,
Yeah.
they disrupt the normal boundaries of perception. Okay. And allow our consciousness to briefly glimpse these other realms.
So, like, they're opening up portals to other dimensions.
It's a wild concept, but some researchers take it seriously.
Okay, so that's one possibility, but what about the other side of the coin?
Right. The idea that these entities are just projections.
Of our own minds.
Exactly. And, our minds are incredibly powerful,
They are.
especially under the influence of psychedelics.
So, it's possible that our brains are just creating these beings.
Possibly.
Like they're not actually out there.
Maybe they're manifestations of our subconscious.
So it's like our inner world is spilling out into our perception.
Exactly. Our deepest fears, desires, even archetypal figures.
Huh. It's like our subconscious is throwing a cosmic costume party.
I like that.
Yeah.
Cosmic costume party.
Right. And we're just seeing these characters.
Yeah, but even if that's true,
Yeah.
it doesn't diminish the impact of these experiences.
That's true.
The fact that our minds can create something so complex,
Yeah.
so meaningful. It tells us something about the power of human consciousness.
Right. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is.
Okay, so we've got these two interpretations.
Two sides of the same coin, maybe.
Right. But is there any way to reconcile them?
Well, maybe it's not about choosing sides.
What do you mean?
Maybe both interpretations are partially true.
Okay, I like that.
Perhaps DMT and Salvia.
Yeah.
They're acting as catalysts,
Okay.
allowing us to tap into a realm
Yeah.
where the lines between internal and external, self and other,
Yeah.
they become blurred.
So reality is more fluid than we think
Exactly. These substances challenge our usual perception.
and force us to question what's real.
They do. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is, but there's one more thing I want to touch on.
Okay, what's that?
The idea that these entities might be trying to communicate with us.
Ah, yes, the communication hypothesis.
Yeah, some people feel like they've received profound teachings.
Right, messages from beyond.
But is that really what's happening?
It's hard to say for sure.
Right. It could just be our brains trying to make sense of these crazy experiences.
It could be, but on the other hand,
Yeah.
what if these substances are opening us up
Hmm.
to different forms of communication?
Like beyond our normal senses.
Exactly. Maybe we're just not equipped to understand it yet.
It's a pretty humbling thought.
It is, to think that there might be so much out
And
there
we're just blind, too.
beyond our current comprehension.
It's both terrifying and exhilarating.
It is a true mystery.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. We've explored the strange world of entities,
DMT, Salvia, parallel universes.
the nature of reality itself.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. And it just shows that there's still so much we don't know.
So much to explore.
Exactly. But what we do know
Yeah.
is that these experiences are pushing the boundaries.
Of our understanding.
Yeah, they're making us question everything we thought we knew
About ourselves, about the universe.
about what's possible.
Exactly, and maybe that's the point.
Maybe it is. So, on that note of cosmic mystery,
Mm-hmm.
we'll leave you to ponder the implications of these extraordinary encounters.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning
And keep your mind open.
to the infinite possibilities of the universe. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.